right, we'll go ahead and get things kicked off today. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining today's webinar. My name is Marley Long, and I'll go ahead and get things started. Today's webinar is going to focus around the new features in SharePoint 2016, as well as how you can leverage analytics to improve adoption in 2016. A bit of webinar housekeeping. This webinar is being recorded, so if you want to share this with a colleague in the next few days, we will be sending this out via email as well as on our website and on social media. You can connect with us on Twitter during the webinar, so you can connect with Interlock at Cardiolog, or you can connect with Vlad at Vlad Catrinescu. And of course, if you have any questions, we'll try to leave some time towards the end of the webinar for any questions you may have. And you can send these questions through the GoToWebinar panel. And if we don't get to all of the questions today, we'll be happy to answer any of these via email after the webinar. In regard to today's agenda, we'll start out with a very short introduction. We'll talk a little bit about Interlock, who we are, and then we will introduce Vlad, who will cover the newest features in SharePoint 2016. And then we'll conclude to talk about how we can leverage analytics to solve adoption challenges. Brief introduction. Interlock has been around for about 10 years now, since 2005. We're based out of Boston. Over the past 10 years, we've been focused on web analytics designed for SharePoint. Our flagship solution is Cardiolog Analytics, and it's built specifically for internal platforms, including all versions of SharePoint from 03 to 2016, as well as SharePoint Online and Office 365. And we can also track third-party tools like Yammer, Citrion, CRM tools, and the like. Our goal is to help our customers constantly improve SharePoint based on how it's being used. So there are three main pillars that we talk to our customers about. So the first is monitor, which is, tracking the usage within SharePoint. The second is engaging users, so asking them what their needs are, what their pain points are, and what's not working for them. And then finally, the most important pillar is enhance. So we want to make sure that we're constantly improving SharePoint based on these three pillars. And the idea is to have actionable metrics, which allow us to constantly make SharePoint better for our users. So with that, we'll just go ahead and jump right in. I want to introduce our guest speaker today, Vlad Catrinescu. Vlad, thanks so much for taking the time to join us today.
Thank you for having me, Marley.
Sure. Let me go ahead and make you presenter. Just bear with me for a second. Okay.
Okay, tell me when you see the presentation.
Looks good.
Okay, so let's get started. Hello everybody, thanks for joining me for a small presentation on what's new in SharePoint 2016 for business users. Let me present myself. My name is Vlad Catrinescu. I'm an independent consultant from the cold Montreal, Canada. I'm also a Pluralsight author, so for those of you who don't know Pluralsight, it's an online training site with about 4,000 videos right now, and you can watch them on demand. So it's great for training not only SharePoint, but everything Microsoft and open source. I also travel quite a lot to speak. You might have seen me all over the United States, in Europe, and if I get to see you in 2016, don't hesitate to say hi. For those of you who don't have me on Twitter yet, my Twitter is @VladCatrinescu. I know it's really easy to spell, but you can copy-paste it from the slides afterwards. And I blog at absolute-sharepoint.com. So what are we going to talk about today? We'll first start to talk about the evolution of SharePoint. What does everybody mean when they say SharePoint 2016 comes from the cloud down. We'll also look at some small statistics on is SharePoint used, how many companies are using SharePoint all over the world. Over the last year, you probably heard a lot of rumors that SharePoint is dying and all this blah blah, but it's not true, and I'll show you the numbers to prove it. We'll then start looking at the new features such as DLP, durable links, the new large file limit, and then we'll look at what did we lose. Because we did lose some features in SharePoint 2016, such as SharePoint Foundation, Excel services, and a few more. We'll then look at the benefits of having SharePoint 2016 in hybrid mode. We'll look at what is the profile redirection, what are the hybrid sites, and the new cloud search service application. We'll then look at what's next, what's the roadmap, and at the end of the webinar, we're going to have a small Q&A. But as I said to Marley earlier, send all the questions in the webinar chat box, and I'll make sure that I'll follow up with a blog after the webinar, maybe next week, to answer all the questions that we couldn't answer live. So let's start a bit with the evolution of SharePoint. What happened over the past 15 years? And I actually took this slide from Bill Baer from Ignite because it really gives a good overview. So SharePoint started in 2001, and that almost everybody knows. What a lot of people don't know is that the Microsoft Cloud is not new. Microsoft actually started selling cloud solutions back in 2002 with the Microsoft Managed Solutions. What they did back then, it wasn't like Office 365 now. It was actually taking the on-prem stuff, hosting it for them, and only giving clients access to the site collections. They did the same thing for SharePoint 2007 and SharePoint 2010, but then in 2012, Microsoft launched Office 365. What happened is that Office 365 kept getting updated, kept getting new features, kept getting cool stuff. And what Microsoft did for the first time with SharePoint 2016 is that instead of taking the on-prem server, so instead of taking SharePoint 2016, putting it in the cloud, and then going on from there, they actually took the latest code, the latest updates from Office 365, and applied them to SharePoint 2016. So it's the first version of SharePoint that actually comes with code from the cloud. And that's what they mean when they're saying SharePoint 2016 comes from the cloud down. Some small statistics. There's actually a small error on this slide. There are 75,000 enterprises who currently use SharePoint in the world for a total of 160 million users. So that's a lot of users. If we look at SharePoint Online, 200% monthly active user growth on SharePoint Online and OneDrive for Business. So more and more companies that have SharePoint as part of their Office 365 are starting to use it. And currently 40% of licenses sold are online. So as you see, the majority of licenses are still on SharePoint on-prem, whether it's 2010, 2013, or soon to be 2016. So that's it for the marketing stuff. Now let's talk about actually what are the cool features. First cool feature that I really love is data loss prevention. What is data loss prevention? Data loss prevention is basically finding sensitive information in your SharePoint before somebody can get access to it when they shouldn't. A lot of people seem to confuse DLP with DPM. DPM is another Microsoft product, which is Data Protection Manager, that is used for backups. DLP is really used to find credit cards, to find passport numbers, bank accounts, and a total of 51 information types that you can find in SharePoint. And if you have a hybrid setup, you can search across SharePoint 2016, OneDrive for Business, SharePoint Online, so from one place, you can find all of them. If we look at the goals of DLP in SharePoint 2016, the four main topics are identify, monitor, protect, and end user education. So first, identify. DLP uses the powerful SharePoint search engine as well as some business rules to find the documentation. We then have the monitor, which is the e-discovery center, and I'll actually open up a SharePoint 2016 virtual machine so you can have a look of how they work live. We can use the e-discovery center to do reports and to see where do I have sensitive information in my SharePoint. And if I have that information, SharePoint 2016 allows me to automatically block it. So if I have a credit card in a document library, I shouldn't have it there, so I'm going to block it right away, and I will wait until it's reviewed before unblocking it. And lastly, end user education. So instead of only telling users, hey, you did something wrong, you messed up, Microsoft implemented a bunch of end user notifications and education features to tell users what they did wrong. So actually, let me go to the demo right away. Okay, so what I have here, I actually uploaded 3 documents, and as you see in information from clients, what I have is I have a bunch of credit cards. I think I have 5 or 6 credit cards number once it opens. Come on, SharePoint. Well, this opens. Looks like I had to warm up Office Web Apps a bit before. Oh, here it is. So yeah, I have a Word document, information for clients, and I have a random credit card number, 16 digits, with a verification code and an expiration date. First, let's look at the eDiscovery Center, which is used to monitor. We're going to go on Create DLP Query, create a new item, and as an end user, it's really easy to find information. We have a bunch of templates that actually correspond with international rules. If you ask me personally, I'm a bit more technical, so I don't know all of them by heart, but luckily Microsoft gave us a little information about the templates. So I know that the PCI data security standard is going to show me all the credit card numbers. So I'll select PCI. I will click on one because I want to get all the documents, even if they only have one credit card number inside. I will click Next. The query is already going to be done for me, so I don't have to customize anything there. I'll just tell it, hey, search in my portal home, in my home web application, search. It's going to take a few seconds, and then it's going to show me all the documents that have a credit card number inside my portal home. And I think I can actually zoom in so you all can see a little bit better. There we go. So as you see, I have 2 documents, information from clients and new information from clients. I can see that they're all docx, so Word documents. I can see when they were last modified. I can filter by property, and I can also export them because when you present that at a meeting, when you want, let me give it a name, credit card, you don't always want to give them access to SharePoint. If you want to present something to someone, you just want to give them maybe an Excel file, maybe a PowerPoint. So what I'll do, I'll just export it. It's going to export me a CSV file. Let's see, test 2. Let's put it. It's going to give me a CSV file, and of course, if I'm on the SharePoint server, it's not going to look as great as if it was in Excel. Put it, CC. Reports, SharePoint results, and you see I have the documents in CSV format, the title, the author, who created it, who's the person who last modified it, and all that information that I would need to actually see all the things that shouldn't be in SharePoint. The other feature that it does is block. So if we go back to the document library, you'll see that one of my documents has a red. I'll actually make this a bit bigger as well. One of my documents has a stop sign on it. So if I look at the new information from clients, you see that it has that subsign. If I click on it, it says, hey, the document is blocked. Only the person who created the document, last modified it, and the person who is the site owner can see it. Everybody else doesn't even see that document exists. And as an end user, I have the policy tip that tells me, hey, your item contains the following sensitive information, credit card number. So I know right away that I have a credit card number in that document and I shouldn't. As an end user, I have two options. I have three options. I can either take the credit card out, I can override policy and give a business justification. So maybe this is the invoicing document library, which should have credit card number inside. So I'll say, hey, it's normal that I have a credit card number in that document. Or what else that I can do is I can report an issue and tell my administrator that there is no credit card number in the document. It's just that SharePoint reported it wrong. And SharePoint also sends us emails. SharePoint is going to send us two emails. The first one to the end user is going to say, hey, we have an item called all client information that contains the following information number, credit card number. So it's almost the same thing as in the document library, but in the email, so we get that notification. And it also sends a notification to your compliance department or to whoever you choose it to send that email. In the email, you have, hey, we found a match for one of your policy rules that contradicts what you want to have in SharePoint. So this is the item. You have the person who created the document and last modified it, the sensitive information that it contains, which is credit card, how many credit cards did it find inside, as well as how much SharePoint is sure that they found a credit card number inside. If you want to set it up, I actually have a cool blog post on my blog, step-by-step, how to set it up and make it work on SharePoint 2016. But in this webinar, we're only going to look at the end-user scenarios, so I won't go into too many technical details. So that's about it for DLP. Let me go back to the slides and talk about durable links. Durable links is a new feature in SharePoint 2016 that makes sure that basically when you move a document from a document library to another, or when you change its name, in SharePoint 2013, the document link doesn't work. So maybe you have portal.demo.local/sharedocument/document1, and that's the link of the document. If you change it to document 2, the link document 1 is broken. So it's the same thing as a file share. So people when they want to move from file shares to SharePoint, they want to have as many arguments as possible of why SharePoint is better. This feature requires Office Online Server, which is the new Office web apps. So if you don't have Office Online Server, this won't work. And don't worry, even if the name is Office Online Server, it's 100% on-prem. It's just that they want to keep the same naming as the online version. How does it work? You'll see that in all your Office documents and PDF documents, you will have an ID number at the end. So you'll have the D equal and an ID number, and SharePoint will always check that ID number before checking the URL, and will always get you to the right document. So let me show you how it works. So you see I have this business information document. Let me just open it up, and let me copy the URL. Control-C, Control-V. Perfect. So you see, let me make this a bit bigger. I still have a path-based URL, so if we look at it, it's still portal.demo.local, share documents, business information.doc, and I have the ID number. So what I will do now is I will take this document and I'll move it to second document library. So I'll move it to a document library. If I go in it, you'll see that the document did change its path-based URL. So let me copy it here. you'll see that the first part of the URL did change for the document, and that's normal. However, the ID of the document stayed the same. So what I'll do now, I'll take the first link before we moved it, that goes into Share Documents. I'll open a new tab, and you'll see that everything still works. So my link wasn't broken, even if I rename it or I moved it to a different document library, my link still works. So it's another reason for people to move from file shares, and it's something that really annoyed people in SharePoint 2010 and 2013. A lot of requests came in, so the links don't break anymore when we rename the document. So that's about it for durable links. Remember, you need Office Online Server installed, and it works with all the Office documents, so Word, Excel, PowerPoint, OneNote, as well as PDF. Back to the slides. Large file support. You know, in SharePoint 2010 and 2013, we could only go up to 2 gigs. We couldn't have files bigger than 2 gigs. However, now the new default max file size is 10 gigabytes, which is quite a lot already, and you can go higher. I've already tried uploading a 20 gig file, and it worked no problem. And also, before, the uploads in SharePoint were really slow. Maybe even if it worked, if you tried to upload a 10 gig document, it could take quite a while. However, in SharePoint 2016, Microsoft created a brand new upload system, so your uploads are going to be a lot faster. And for the SharePoint admins, you can still set that limit per web application to make sure that people don't start uploading 10 gigs files in all the web applications and blow up your content databases. Another cool feature is improved mobile experience, especially for OneDrive for Business and for your basically your My Site. You'll see that the mobile experience is a lot better. However, it's not 100% there yet. If you want to have fully responsive for your team sites, publishing sites, you will still need to have that custom master page and CSS and responsive design. So it's a lot better than before, but it's still not 100% like responsive yet all over SharePoint. Other cool features, you can now have the open document format. You have more supported special characters than you had before, a better recycle bin, and improved information rights management if your company uses it. Now, what features did we lose in SharePoint 2016? There's no more SharePoint Foundation 2016, so you can either stay on SharePoint Foundation 2013 or go online, but there is no free version of SharePoint on the 2016 version. Something that we lost but didn't lose is SharePoint Designer and InfoPath. There will be no version of SharePoint Designer and InfoPath 2016. However, the SharePoint Designer 2013 and InfoPath 2013 will be fully supported on SharePoint 2016 throughout the life cycle of the product. So SharePoint Designer 2013 and InfoPath 2013 will be supported until 2026. So you still have a good 10 years ahead of you to be able to create forms in InfoPath, no problem. Excel services, there's no more Excel services in SharePoint 2016. Some functionalities we lost completely. However, most of them are available if you install Office Online Server. So as long as you have Office Online Server, you should have most of the stuff you need. For the BI capabilities, everything is still there. Power Pivot Gallery, Performance Point, no improvements, but we didn't lose anything. However, for now, you need to be on SQL 26. There is no add-in for SQL 2014 yet, so make sure that if you want to have BI, go on SQL 2016 right away. Another big topic in SharePoint 2016 is hybrid. What do we have in hybrid? First of all, hybrid team sites. So basically, if you follow right now in SharePoint 2013, if you follow a site on premises and if you follow a site online, you're going to have to check 2 places to check the sites, all the sites that you follow. Now if you put in place hybrid team sites, you're only going to have one place because all your followed sites for on-prem are going to be pushed into your Office 365 site section. So you're not going to have to check two places anymore. Profile redirection, something else that we had, well, we didn't have in 2013, but we had the problem in 2013 that if you're in hybrid 2013, you had your My Site, and you also had your My Site in 365, which is now Delve. Now we could set up profile redirection, so anytime somebody looks at a profile for on-prem, it will go to their Office 365 in Delve. Another cool feature, the extensible app launcher. So once you set up the hybrid team sites, you're going to have the video, you're going to have Delve directly into the SharePoint 2016 ribbon. And also, we should have an update. Microsoft said December 2015, January 2016, but it's not there yet. That will also have custom apps. So if you add a custom app to your 365, maybe like say call it intranet or Facebook for work or whatever, it will also show you up in the ribbon and on-prem. So the ribbon is going to be is going to look a lot more integrated between Office 365 and SharePoint. Also, hybrid OneDrive for Business. Instead of having your OneDrive for Business on-prem and having to back up maybe 500 meg, 1 gig, 1 terabyte of stuff, having to host it in your content databases, having to back it up, you could put your OneDrive for Business in the cloud and let Microsoft handle all of the space problems, all the backup problems. And I think now on certain plans you can get unlimited OneDrive for Business, so you're not going to have to host all that data anymore in your own SQL. Another cool feature is the Cloud Search Service application. This one also works with SharePoint 2013. So this came out in September 2015. It works on SharePoint 2013 if you have the August 2015 PU patch, and it's out of the box in SharePoint 2016. It's a new type of search service application. It's exactly the same crawler as before, but your documents stay on premises, but your search index is moved to the cloud, and all the communication is encrypted. Let me show you the difference of what we had before in hybrid search. We had to put results block because it was a federated search, so we couldn't have the best results whether they're online or on-prem. We had to show results for Office 365 in one box and then results for on-prem in another box. We couldn't show them all in the same page and show us the best result from wherever it is. Now, with the Cloud Search Service application, we can actually have all that mixed search. So as you see in the screenshot over here, I have the first one in yellow, which is from my on-prem intranet. Then I have a bunch of documents from Office 365, and then I have another one from on-prem. So SharePoint showed me the best results for my query wherever that document was. Some benefits of having the Cloud Search Service application: reduce on-prem infrastructure. You don't need that index component anymore. You only need a crawler. Office 365 team will take care of your search, so less stuff for the SharePoint admin to worry, a lot better collaboration, and if you enable the Cloud Search Service application, you also get on-premise results in your Delve. So that increases collaboration and productivity, and it's a lot easier for users to find stuff even if you're doing a migration. So let me close up the VM I had here and let me open up another VM which is configured in hybrid mode. So let me start with, oops, not this account. Perfect. Let me log in as Alex. So first thing I want to show you is the hybrid sites. So actually, let me go to my OneDrive. You see when I clicked on OneDrive, it actually moved me to Office 365. If I go to the sites, I'll go to the sites I follow. You'll see that, hey, I have a team site, which is from Office 365. I have the recommended sites, which are all Office 365. And I also have some stuff from on-prem in there. And I have the intranet home, which, as you see in the URL, let me make it this bigger as well. If you look at the URL in the bottom, you see that this site goes to on-prem. So I can see my on-prem sites, my followed on-prem sites in the cloud in Office 365 at the same place where I see my Office 365 followed sites. If I click on it, it brings me back to on-prem. If we look at the ribbon, you see that I have Newsfeed OneDrive sites, which we had before, but we also have Delve and video. So if I click on Delve, it's going to bring me to Delve, which is really cool because I don't have to know the URL or go through other URLs to actually get there. If I go on the profile, if I click on Alex, you'll see that instead of going to my on-prem profile, it goes to the Delve profile of Alex. So we have one profile. We don't have to keep two profiles anymore and make sure they both work. And if we look at the Delve, since we configured the hybrid SharePoint search, you see that I have activity, I have the SharePoint administrator document, and it's stored in intranet home. So I have documents from on-prem that show up in Delve in the cloud. And if I actually, let me go back to sites to show you how the search works. Let me do a search over here, SharePoint administrator. You see I have a document from on-prem, which is from intranet.globalmantics.org, which is on-prem, and then I have documents from my SharePoint Online. So in the same view, I'm able to view both online and on-prem results, and instead of having to check two different result blocks to find the document that I want, I can get the best document wherever that document is stored in the same view. So it's a lot better user experience. Let's go back to the slides. So what's next for SharePoint 2016? Well, in Q3 in August 2015, we had the beta 1. November 2015, we had the beta 2. The release candidate came out actually on January 20, so not that long ago. And Microsoft said they will release the RTM version for general availability in the spring. So we all know the spring is a very large term, so there is no date yet for when Microsoft will release the RTM version of SharePoint 2016, but it should hopefully be before June, I guess, or when spring finishes. So that's about it for this short 25-30-minute presentation. You have my contact information here from the top on the screen. We're also going to send you the slides, so if you ever want to have the links, you can click it on the slide when we send them back to you. And I will let Marley talk about analytics and how to improve SharePoint.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Vlad. That was really incredibly helpful, and I think a lot of good pieces can be taken out of what we can look forward to in 2016. I'm going to go ahead and make myself presenter. Okay, and I do see that there are a few questions so far, so we'll try to get to them at the end, but we'll also be answering them via email as well, so don't worry. All right, let's get started. So first of all, why do we even need analytics when talking about SharePoint? So the key here is that you can really only manage what you can measure. So only can we know what's going on in SharePoint and define in SharePoint if our launch was successful is by measuring if people are using it, if adoption is increasing, and being able to measure what's going on. And that's really the end goal that we help our customers with. So how can we measure the deployment, analyze it, and then help customers improve their environments based on what's actually going on? And this here is actually just a screenshot of our new, this is an internet dashboard that our new release will look like, which we will also be releasing in the spring. So keep your eyes and ears open for that as well. Okay, so if we break this down a little bit more into some subcategories, I'm going to focus on 4 key ways to track adoption for our purposes today. So there are many ways and a lot of metrics that we can use, but I'm just trying to simplify it. We have a short presentation today, but in the event that you would ever be interested in a demonstration, we would be happy to set that up for you if you want to see more information on this. So the first category I'll focus on is tracking basic usage activity and the users themselves. So over the course of different weeks and months, if people are using SharePoint more, different departments, etc., and we can actually show management that adoption is actually increasing and that the training that we're providing for them is actually beneficial in helping our users leverage SharePoint. Okay. So through analytics, we can measure improved productivity. So a great example of that is through search. I'm sorry. So if we find out that everyone is searching for the same content, let's put a link on the home page and save everyone those 30 seconds each day that they're searching for that same popular content. Moving on to the bottom left corner to collaboration. So a huge goal for helping SharePoint is helping different teams and employees collaborate. So of course, offices can span across various states, countries, and time zones. So the ability to show that there's collaboration and that people are really leveraging the tools for collaborating is really important. And when we talk about collaboration, this really ties into SharePoint Social as well. And finally, engagement. So there's a lot of new social features within SharePoint, anything from communities beyond just viewing content, liking content, sharing content, writing content, and more. So we want to make sure that people are leveraging the ability to use communities. And if there are communities with lower engagement levels, then we can pinpoint them with analytics and offer them very targeted training because we know that those communities aren't leveraging SharePoint as often. So that's why we need analytics when we're talking about SharePoint communities. Okay. So taking a step back, just to talk about the wide array of metrics that are available, the traditional metrics as well as social metrics are still very important. So this means when we talk about traditional metrics, this means things like page views, information around the visitors, how are the users navigating through the portal, where are they getting stuck, where are they coming from, what are they searching for, what are they interested in, and again, what do they have difficulty finding within the portal. We even have portal growth metrics, so more governance metrics or administrative metrics. What are the content heavy items in the portal, who is modifying documents, and what documents are being modified. So if we drill down into the visitor area, we can see the traditional metrics and we can drill into these user-centric metrics. So if we look here at this unique user table, we see integration with Active Directory. And here we see the unique user name, and based on this, we can make improvements. So for example, if we see there's a cutoff for a certain number of views within a specified date range, and if anyone who doesn't meet that cutoff, we can decide to send them for training. If we move to the right and analyze a page views metric, it allows you to see content that no one is viewing. There's not many users visiting or the exit rate is very high. This may tell us that it's not a very important piece of information or doesn't provide value to the users, so let's delete it. Conversely, if this content is important and there's no foot traffic, we can easily make a decision to add a button to the homepage to make this very important item more accessible for users to see. So using these user-centric metrics is really a practical way to build the foundation of the portal and help your users find value in the portal. We can also drill down into more social metrics with users. So before I talked about traditional metrics, so now I'm going to kind of dive in a bit into social metrics. So when talking about users, so I've just These social metrics can really give you a holistic perspective on what's going on with your users in the portal. So for example, if you see a user's activity chart with each user's posts, comments, discussions, and replies, and you can also create an influential users chart. So not only are you viewing these unique users like I showed you before, but you can actually see which users are gaining influence in the portal and are so-called leading the pack. And you can leverage these users to lead SharePoint groups and so forth. So now I'll transition to our second category for improving adoption, and that's productivity. So I mentioned previously that search reports can drastically help you improve your users' productivity levels in SharePoint. So for example, with on-site search phrases, it not only tells you the exact search phrases entered, but with top ranked search phrases, you can also gather deep insights into what are your users searching for, what do they need help with, and what topics they're interested in. So you can easily leverage these insights to create navigation paths in SharePoint and easy routes for users to access popular content or important content to the organization. So this can really save your users a lot of time. Another interesting metric relating to productivity that I wanted to share with you is the average number of contributions per user. So this metric can really get an in-depth glimpse at the exact levels that your users are actively contributing content. And you can modify these metrics by months, days, quarters, years, things like that. So it's very user-friendly in that way. So moving on to collaboration metrics. So metrics surrounding content is huge for collaboration. And there's also a big shift here when talking about adoption from just page views to more of these social metrics. So besides what's been viewed very often, we're going to see what content is most influential and then make that content easier to find for users. So this can be done, like I said, through links on the homepage, and we define influential content by things such as comments, most likes, highest ratings, followers. So these two metrics here that I have, so likes and rated content, you can drill down to see these individual pieces of content, how well they're performing. So as well, the average ratings, how many raters are interacting with the content, etc. And all of these fit into this kind of bigger picture of improving collaboration, which inherently will improve adoption. So by arming yourselves with this data, you can really understand what your collaboration levels are and then take action. So the last category that I'd like to touch on is engagement. So when talking about adoption, we've also seen a shift from usage to real engagement with the portal. So there are active discussions going on in these communities. So if we can monitor what are these active communities, how these discussions are taking place, how many replies, we can really start to understand the portal more. So this allows us to pick out influential topics, for example. So if we see topics with a lot of activity, this allows us to focus if we're mining for interesting information. And we now know that we should surface this content or focus on these communities to improve adoption. You could even have different measurements for engagement depending on the type of community. So for example, a community that is broader, all-employed community, you might have a lesser level of engagement. But for a specified business unit, checking into the community once a week may not be enough and would qualify as being fairly disengaged. So if you want to raise the bar and set your KPIs to a different, so you may want to raise the bar and set your KPIs to a different standard. So all of this ties into what is the desired outcome for engagement and adoption levels. So what are we trying to measure versus just having these kind of generic KPIs across each of our various communities? And very quickly, for my final slide, often the best way to measure employee engagement is just simply to ask them. So we know it's a soft concept, so to speak, so it's hard to come up with set metrics. So for that reason, we should sometimes just go to employees and ask them, hey, how are you doing? Are you finding what you need? Do you need any help with anything? And this brings me to the point that we should really focus on this value as opposed to actions. So how are we adding value with the metrics that we set and the goals that we initially set for SharePoint 2016 or really any SharePoint portal, whether it's online or 2013, 2010, etc. Okay. So that was just a quick example, some of the metrics that can be provided here. So we have a few minutes towards the end of our time today. So I do see there was some questions already previously asked, so we'll try to get to a few of them today, and the rest of them we'll try to get to after the session is over in email. Okay, let me just scroll up for a second. And just so you all know, for anyone who joined later in today's session, this session is being recorded. So we will be sending this out to everyone after the session is over. We'll be sending it via email and also we'll be posting it on social media. So look out for that in the next couple of days. All right, so I think this question is for you, Vlad. What service update patch is required for the cloud search service for SharePoint 2013?
It's the August 2015 public update.
Okay. And can that work the other way, i.e. Office 365 online searching for content on-prem?
Once you set it up, you can have a result source that will go on the 365 index, and you can have a search center on-prem that shows you the same information as you see online. If that's the question, but you cannot have your index from in the cloud store it on-prem, but you can have the same experience in an on-prem search center. I hope that answers your questions. If not, just ask it again with more specifics, and I'll get back to you by blog post or email.
Perfect. Another question from Guru. Noticed both Vlad at email and Vlad username as two different users. Is this the same user depending on where the user is logging in from?
Yes, if you look, well, I think it was Alex in my demo. If we look at on-prem, usually our usernames are domain /username, so let's say demo /Vlad. However, when I sync that user to Office 365, in Office 365 you always sign up with your email, so your username is going to be Vlad at demo.local. So yes, it's the same user, and you need to have the Active Directory sync in place. So it needs to be that same user for it to work.
Great. Another question from Christelle. Do you know why Excel Services was discontinued?
This is not an official answer because I don't know the official answer, but I think it's because it was causing too much confusion with Office web apps. If you look in 2013, if you had Excel services and Office web apps, when did you use which one? You had to do custom settings, so only the BI stuff opens in Excel services, while all the other documents open in Office Online Server, and you had two ways to implement kind of the same functionality. So I think that's why Microsoft killed Microsoft Services and gave the Office web apps team this charge to make sure that there's only one solution to the problem.
Great. I have a question from Morali asking about analytics, if they differ between online or on-premises. And the answer for that is that you can have all the same analytics for online as well as on-premises. So everything is adaptable for any version of SharePoint, whether it's online or on-premises. And okay, I've got another question. Let's see. do we have some information about software and hardware requirements from SharePoint 2016 is being asked by Sven.
Oh yeah, I just didn't cover them since I didn't have time in this one. Hardware-wise, it's the same thing as SharePoint 2013. So 4 cores, uh, is it 8 or 12 the minimum? But anyway, you should put a bit more than that. But it's the same thing as 2013 hardware side. And software side, you need to have Windows Server 2012 R2 or Windows Server 2016 and SQL Server 2014 Service Pack 1 or SQL Server 2016. If you go for the BI and if you need BI, I would strongly go with SQL 2016 to make sure that I have all my Power Pivot stuff.
Great. Okay, so I think we've got time for just about one more question. So I see Guru is asking, could we have highlight some differences between Cardiolog analytics and out-of-the-box analytics? So I'll be happy to send you, I have a breakdown of that that will be much more helpful than me explaining it to you on this webinar. So I will send that to you after the webinar today. And if anyone else is interested in a comparison between an advanced analytics solution and what they can provide versus kind of the basic out-of-the-box analytics, I'm happy to send you any kind of documentation that can help you in this decision-making towards advanced analytics. Okay, so just the last question that we have time for today. Nirosha says she's a SharePoint branding person, and how does it work with the design manager? Will it be existing, and what is the workaround?
That is a great question. Unfortunately, me and branding are two different things. I'm unable to make something look good, so I didn't even use Design Manager in 2013 because I'm just that bad at branding. But I'll ask the right persons and I'll get an answer for you afterwards. So I'll get an answer for you, don't worry, but just not today.
Great. All right, so that's all the time we have so far. Again, Vlad, I want to thank you so much for taking your time out today. Very powerful presentation. There's a lot of things to look forward to with SharePoint 2016. And thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Marilee. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Have a great day.
And again, we'll be answering everyone's questions via email in the next couple of days. And we'll also be sending out the recording and the presentation as well. So thanks for joining, everyone.